I never imagined that a single winter evening could overturn everything I thought I knew about achievement, purpose, and real happiness. That night, I was heading home alone, my head full of figures, contracts, and the hollow stillness waiting in my apartment. Then a faint voice cut through the freezing air and brought my entire world to a halt. My name is Adrien Cole. I am 38 years old, the CEO of a supply chain technology firm in Seattle. I design systems that speed goods across cities and nations. People call me accomplished. People call me overworked. I often call myself lonely. That evening, heavy snow had buried the city. A bitter wind sliced through my coat as I passed the old downtown bus terminal. My driver had canceled, and I chose to walk rather than wait. I thought a breath of cold air might refresh my mind after a long meeting about growth strategies and profit forecasts. But my mind hadn't been truly clear for years. Not since my divorce 3 years ago, and not since my daughter moved far away with her mother. The street lamps flickered above the snow. The world felt quiet yet heavy, as if something was about to happen. I tugged my coat tighter and pressed on, focused only on reaching home. Then I heard it. "Sir? Excuse me, sir?" The voice was tiny, fragile, nearly swallowed by the wind. I stopped and turned slowly. Near the side of the bus terminal, under a broken light, stood a small boy alone. He looked about 8 years old. His face was red from cold, his lips trembling. He wore a thin blue jacket, far too light for this weather. But what seized my attention was what he held, a tiny infant wrapped in a flimsy old blanket. The baby wasn't crying loudly. Only soft, weak sounds escaped, as if she had no energy left. I hurried closer. "Hey, are you okay?" I asked, scanning for any adult nearby. The boy shook his head fast. "Sir, my baby sister is freezing," he said, his voice cracking. "I don't know what to do. She's too cold." My heart sank instantly. I looked at the baby again. Her small face was pale, her hands stiff, her breathing alarmingly slow. "Where are your parents?" I asked carefully. The boy looked down, his eyes filled with tears, but he fought them back. "My name is Ethan," he said, "and my sister is Lily. Mom said she would come back. She told me to wait here, but she didn't come back." He paused, then whispered, "I tried to keep her warm. I really tried, but she is getting quieter now. I think something is wrong." I didn't hesitate any longer. I tore off my heavy winter coat. "Give her to me," I said gently. The boy hesitated for only a second. Then he placed the baby into my arms. The moment I touched her, I felt how icy she was. I stopped breathing for a moment. This was extremely dangerous. I wrapped my coat around both of them swiftly, pulling them close to my chest. "You are safe now," I said, even though I wasn't sure yet. Ethan stared at me with fearful eyes. "Are you going to take us away?" I shook my head. "No, I'm going to help you, but we need warmth right now." He nodded slowly, still uncertain, but he followed me as I began walking fast toward my office building nearby. It had heating, security, and a first aid kit. The snow grew heavier. The wind pushed against us, as if trying to block our path. I held the baby tighter while walking, feeling her tiny body grow weaker in my arms. Did your mom say where she was going? I asked. Ethan wiped his nose with his sleeve. She said just 5 minutes. She needed to talk to someone. Then the snow started, and she didn't come back. How long have you been here? I don't know. Maybe a long time. My legs hurt. My sister stopped crying a while ago. That scared me even more.
My chest tightened. We reached the glass doors of my office building. The security guard looked shocked as I rushed in with 2 children wrapped in my coat. "Sir," he began. "Call emergency services now," I ordered quickly, "and bring warm blankets immediately." The guard ran off. Inside, the heat hit us, but the baby barely reacted. I sat on the lobby sofa and carefully placed her on my lap. Ethan stood beside me, trembling. I touched the baby's cheek again. She was barely moving now. My hands started shaking too. "Stay with me, little one," I whispered. "Just stay with me." I pulled out my phone, but before I could dial, I noticed something odd on the baby's wrist, a small hospital tag. My breath stopped again. The name on it was not Lily, and at that exact moment, the elevator doors behind me opened, and 2 police officers walked in quickly, looking directly at us. "Sir," one said sharply, "we need to talk about where you found that child." The moment the officers entered, the atmosphere shifted. It felt even colder than outside, despite the building's warmth. My heart was still racing as I held the baby close, trying to keep her stable. The first officer looked serious. "Sir, we need the exact location where you found this child." I stood slowly, still holding the baby. "Outside the bus terminal on 8th Street, I said. "A little boy was holding her. He said they were waiting for their mother." Ethan moved closer to me at once. He grabbed my sleeve as if afraid someone would take him away. The second officer knelt and looked at Ethan. "What's your name, son?" "Ethan," he said quietly. "Please don't take my sister." His voice cracked on the last word. The officer's expression softened for a moment, but then he continued. "We need to understand the situation. This is very serious." I sensed that something was wrong. Not just the cold, not just abandoned children, but something deeper. I glanced at the baby again. Her breathing was still weak, but she was alive. That was the only thing keeping me steady. "We should go to the hospital now," I said urgently. "She needs medical care immediately." The officers agreed, and within minutes we were in a police car heading to the nearest hospital. Ethan sat next to me, still clutching my sleeve. He never let go. On the way, I kept staring at the baby's tiny face. Questions flooded my mind. Who leaves children like this? Why was there a hospital tag on her wrist? And why didn't the name match anything the boy had said? At the hospital, everything moved fast. Nurses took the baby from my arms and rushed her into a room. Ethan tried to follow, but a nurse gently stopped him. "She's going to be okay," I told him, kneeling down. "They're helping her now." But Ethan's eyes were full of fear. What if she doesn't wake up? I had no answer that could truly comfort him, so I simply said, "We are not leaving her." A few minutes later, a doctor came out. He looked first at the officers, then at me. "Her condition is stable now," he said, "but she was very close to severe hypothermia. If she had stayed outside much longer, it could have been fatal." I closed my eyes for a moment, relief mixed with dread. Then the doctor added something that changed everything. "She has an identification tag from a hospital, but it does not match her current name records. We are trying to confirm her identity." One of the officers immediately looked at me. "Sir, we may have a bigger situation here." My stomach tightened. Ethan stepped closer. "Can I see my sister now?" The doctor hesitated. "Not yet, but she is safe." Ethan looked at me, panic rising again. He whispered, "Please don't leave us." I placed my hand on his shoulder. "I'm not leaving." A detective arrived shortly after. Her name was Detective Morgan. She opened a file and looked at Ethan gently. "Ethan, we are trying to find your mother. Can you tell me exactly what happened today again?" Ethan repeated the same story, but his voice was weaker now. He kept glancing toward the hospital doors, as if expecting his sister to vanish. While he spoke, I stepped aside and overheard the detective and doctor whispering, "Possible missing child case. The hospital tag might belong to another infant reported missing yesterday." My heart dropped. Another officer walked in quickly with papers in hand. "We just got a match," he said. "There is a missing infant report from a hospital 2 days ago. The baby's name is Lily Carter." I froze. The detective turned to me. "Sir, the boy said the baby's name was Lily, correct?" "Yes," I said slowly. But now everything felt wrong. Very wrong. If this was the same baby, how did she end up alone with a boy on the street? Where was their mother really? And why were they separated like this? Ethan suddenly grabbed my hand tightly. "Is something bad happening?" I didn't know what to say. I looked at him and forced a calm voice. "We are going to find the truth, I promise you." But inside, I felt like I was standing on the edge of something much larger than a simple rescue. Detective Morgan closed her file slowly. "Mr. Cole, we may need you to stay longer. This case is not what it first appeared to be." Ethan looked at me again, his small voice barely a whisper. "Sir, can you still stay with us?" I nodded. But at that exact moment, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A new message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. It contained only 5 words. "You should not have taken her." The message made my hand go cold. For a moment, I could not move. The hospital noise around me faded. The voices of nurses, footsteps in the hallway, even Ethan's breathing beside me, all felt distant. Ethan looked up at me. "Sir, what is wrong?" I quickly turned my phone off and forced a calm expression. "Nothing, just a work message," I said. But my voice didn't sound normal, even to myself. Detective Morgan noticed my reaction. She stepped closer. "Mr. Cole, can I see your phone?" I hesitated, then handed it over. She read the message, and her expression changed instantly. Her eyes sharpened. "This is not normal," she said. "This looks like someone is tracking the situation." My chest tightened again. We were moved to a private room inside the hospital. Ethan stayed glued to my side the whole time. He didn't speak much now, only watched every adult carefully, as if trying to decide whether we were safe. A few minutes later, Detective Morgan returned with a folder. She placed it on the table slowly. "Mr. Cole, we have started verifying identities." I nodded, waiting. She opened the folder. "The baby, Lily Carter, is confirmed missing from Central City Hospital 2 days ago. But there is something else." She paused. Ethan squeezed my hand harder. "The boy," she continued, "Ethan is not listed as her sibling in any official records." The room went silent. I looked at Ethan immediately. "What?" Ethan's face turned pale. "No, that's not true," he said quickly. "I am her brother. Mom said I am her brother." His voice broke at the end. Detective Morgan softened her tone. Ethan, we checked birth records and hospital records. There is no match. You are registered as a separate missing child from a different case 6 months ago. My mind struggled to process it. Ethan stepped back, as if the floor had vanished beneath him. No, that's not right, he whispered. Mom would not lie to me. His eyes filled with tears again, but this time it was different. Confusion, not just fear. I stood slowly. Detective, are you saying he was not with the baby? She nodded carefully. It appears he may have been placed with her recently, possibly instructed to stay with her. My stomach dropped. Ethan shook his head hard. I took care of her. I kept her warm. I did everything. I believe you cared for her, Detective Morgan said gently, but we are not sure who placed you there. At that moment, everything I thought I understood began to crumble. The hospital door opened suddenly. A nurse rushed in. Detective, we found something in the security footage. We all moved quickly to the monitoring room. On the screen, grainy footage showed the bus terminal. I saw it clearly now. A woman appeared briefly, placed the baby on a bench, looked around nervously, then walked away fast. But what shocked me was what happened next. A man stepped into frame just seconds before her. He handed something to Ethan. It looked like a phone. Ethan, in the video, nodded slowly, then sat down next to the baby. My breath stopped. Detective Morgan paused the video. This is not a family abandonment situation anymore, she said quietly. This may be coordinated. Ethan was watching the screen, his lips trembling. I don't remember this, he said. I don't remember him. I turned to him. Ethan, do you remember anything before today? He tried to think, pressing his head with both hands. I remember waiting. I remember being told to stay. I remember it was important. His voice became smaller. I think someone told me to take care of her, but I don't know who. The room felt like it was closing in. Detective Morgan's radio suddenly crackled. Detective, we just received another alert. Possible suspect vehicle spotted near hospital perimeter. Her expression changed immediately. Lock this floor down. My instincts kicked in fast. Ethan, come here, I said. But Ethan did not move. He was staring at the screen again, whispering, I think I know that man. Suddenly, the hospital lights flickered. A distant alarm sounded. Everything moved at once. Nurses rushed into hallways. Security doors started locking automatically. Detective Morgan grabbed her radio. All units, secure exits immediately. I pulled Ethan toward me. We need to stay together, I said firmly. But then Ethan did something I didn't expect. He pulled his hand away. I think he is here, Ethan whispered. My heart stopped. Who? I asked. Ethan looked at me, eyes wide and full of fear. The man from the video. At that exact moment, the room door slowly opened, and a shadow appeared in the hallway light. Someone had found us. The door opened slowly, and for a second, nobody moved. The hallway light spilled into the room, stretching a long shadow across the floor.